Hello, welcome to Chat UTD. First of all, we're going to talk about the potential sales of Rasmus Højlund, Alessandro Garnacho, and Kobbie Mainoo, as reported by a lot of outlets this week, that potentially they are not for sale as such, but whilst previously they would have been considered to be unsellable, that basically no player now is off the table. What that looks like is that United are in an absolute financial crisis and this is a fire sale. If that's true, what that goes back to is something I said, and I've said many times, that Ineos clearly don't have the financial capacity to do what's needed to be done without severely damaging the club, the team, and everything around it. So they shouldn't have taken United on in the first place. In fact, I'll go one step further than that. It's not just that they can't do what's financially needed without damaging the club. They just can't do what's financially needed. They haven't got the wherewithal to do it. So clearly they haven't. They haven't got the money to do what's needed to do to make United successful again. And there's no precedent for success here that this has worked before. There's no precedent that says a club does a fire sale, which, make no mistakes, this is what that would be, and then a few years later are challenging for Premier League titles. This isn't the precursor to success, it's crisis management. And any club that's getting rid of, I suppose, some of their better players is doing so because they haven't got any money. And it's not a tactic. I mean, I saw something yesterday saying that I think it was Kieran Maguire, the financial expert. He was talking about PSR, which is that regulation where you've got to basically look at your incomings and your outgoings and compare them, and that you can get penalised for it by the Premier League. United's score is really poor on that. And I think the PSR is being used as a reason, particularly for them listening to offers for Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho, because they're academy products and it's 100% clear profit, and that makes your PSR rating go a lot higher. So he was talking about that, and he gave the example of particularly Chelsea and City. He mentioned Liverpool as well, but Chelsea and City getting rid of a lot of their academy players and bringing in a lot of money for them. And he was using that as a comparison. The players that City and Chelsea got rid of were players that were not going to make it into the first team. Probably Cole Palmer the exception, and even then there was players ahead of him, which is why Guardiola made the call to let go of Cole Palmer, which now probably doesn't look the wisest of ideas. But other than that, they're all players that were not going to make it, and that's what United have got to get better at. Letting go of players like, Hugel, the striker, is 21. He's not going to play for Man United, clearly, so they need to let him go. Dan Gore was a captain, I think, of one of the younger teams last year. He's not going to play for United, so let him go. There's loads, I'm sure, and fetch decent money for them. That's what City were doing well. That's what Chelsea were doing well. I know Chelsea let go of Conor Gallagher, who's a bit more of a high-profile player, but my point is, they weren't getting rid of their best players. They weren't. Kobbie Mainoo is one of United's best players. Garnacho is one of United's best players. So you can say it's because they're from the academy and it's clear profit, but the problem is they're two of our best players, and we haven't got enough good players to withstand the loss of that. And particularly with Mainoo, it comes back to something I mentioned when I was talking about United cutting their financial donation of £40,000 a year to the ex-players charity. Ratcliffe's taking the Manchester out of Manchester United, not putting it in. If you start to take our academy players, especially our bright, burgeoning, chinks of light players like Kobbie Mainoo, who's from Manchester, and you let him go because you're skint, then again, you're taking the Manchester out of Manchester United. That's the lifeblood of the club, particularly local players. We don't get a lot of local players coming through now. We still have academy products coming through, but such is the way the game's moved on that it's not like you've now got loads of Mancunians in the academy. We scout from all over the world, which is fine. And United fans will still get behind the academy products as if they were born in within Shore or wherever. But it is nice to have a local lad. It is nice to have someone who's probably supported the kid from being a kid. Sorry, supported the club from being a kid. So I think it's concerning on the face of it. I am going to balance this out in a minute. The other thing with the PSR stuff, and I don't know if I'm understanding this right, if we got rid of Mainu and Garnacho as an example, and we brought in, I don't know what that'd be, about 150 million quid or 120 million quid, that's clear profit, and our PSR rating would be brilliant. And that's what Kieran Maguire was saying. They might do it because it'll increase their PSR rating. But you've got two chasms in the squad then. We're not blessed with loads of midfielders. We're not blessed with tons of players that are the profile of Garnacho. So you have to replace them. So you're going to have to go and spend quite a bit of money, which then puts your PSR rating back down again, I imagine. Or you have to promote someone else through the youth team. But I don't know if we've got anyone coming through. And that doesn't seem to be what United do these days. So there's contradictions to the PSR thing. So the reality is, we didn't get a full takeover. Ineos are who we've got running the football operation, and they ain't got enough money to do what needs to be done. So we're in a financial crisis caused by the Glazers and taken over by Ineos. So the reality of it is that if they're skint, which clearly they are, then absolutely it makes sense that they're going to listen to offers for Kobbie Mainoo. We can be in absolute uproar about it, but from the perspective of Ineos, they shouldn't be there, Ineos, and I maintain that, but they are there. From their perspective, they're going to think, yep, why would we not entertain that as an idea? I think it's becoming increasingly obvious to me that I think Ineos would want United to do well on the pitch, but I don't think it's their main motivation. And I think they've taken on something they can't handle. I think they came in probably with very good intentions, thinking we want to make United great again. They've peeked beneath the hood before they've come in. They've come in and thought, fuck, this is bigger than I thought it was in terms of a financial crisis. We've got to completely clear the decks here. And as I said, there's no precedent for success when that's had to happen. Teams just drop further and further down because the better players leave, and you haven't still not got the money to come and to replace those better players, and you just become average. And that's my concern. They are trying to, I'm sure, cut costs because they need to be cut, absolutely. But if it goes to this sort of level where you're getting rid of your best players, then all they seem to be doing is saving the club from bankruptcy. That's what it looks like, rather than clearing the decks so that we can then be successful again. You clear the decks and then be successful again if you get rid of, I know it's not easy, but Casemiro, Rashford, Lindelof, Eriksen, Anthony, did I say Rashford? I'd probably even say Maguire, even though he's doing all right at the moment. I still think for the wages he's on and his age, I think that would be a bit of a no-brainer personally. Dalot, I'm sure there's others. Mount, Shaw, Malacia. I think there's 10 that I've just counted down. I've missed one because I think there was 11 or 12 when I said it last time. So there's 10 or 11 players before Mainoo, Garnacho, and Rasmus that you'd probably look to move on because they're just not good enough. And that's going to save you an absolute ton of money. If you do that, then what that looks like is you're clearing the decks so that you can be good again. You get rid of your best players, it doesn't look like that. Just to counter this and try and make it a fair argument, because I'm talking, obviously, to myself without anybody else here, what the club might look at is this. They might profile it this way. So Kobbie Mainoo's 19 years old. He's had one full season at United, the first half of which he was injured. He made a good impression when he came. Sorry, rewind. Kobbie Mainoo made a really good impression on the summer tour last year. There was quite high hopes for him that he was going to play a lot of football, and then he got injured, so he was out for half a season. He came back. He looked really good. He became quite a prominent player in the second half of last season. But it's half a season of football. That's all you've really got to look at. He's been out a couple of times this season with injuries, and his form hasn't been as good. So what they might look at is he's 19 years old, and he's had half a good season. And right now would probably be the optimum time to get probably silly money for him. And if they're weighing it up and thinking, we don't think he's going to be as good as everyone says he's going to be, I don't know who makes that call. What football person knows that within that club? I don't know. But if they are genuinely doing that, I can kind of understand that, because I see a lot of people talk about Mainu, who's going to be the captain in 5 years. Like, I rate Mainu. I think he's been really good, but we need to be careful. Players have made good impressions and then fallen off the face of a cliff many times before. So it's not an absolute given that he's going to be a superstar. He's got the attributes to do it, but that doesn't always make it happen. So the club might look at it that way. They might look at the comparison with Rashford. Now, I think Mainu seems very different to Rashford, but Rashford, a Manchester lad, all came a bit soon for him, surrounded by plonkers who are in it for their own end from the local area, his brothers, his family, his mates. Could they look at Mainu and think, a bit concerned he might go down that route? Again, I'm just trying to provide balance. And the other thing, and I think this is spin, because it was the Daily Mail that said it, is that there's reports doing the rounds that he's asked for 200k a week. If he's asked for 200k a week, I'd sell him, because he's on 20 grand a week at the moment, so he's asking for 10 times more than what he's on at the moment. If that's the case, then absolutely I'd let him go. So if he's asking for stupid money, and he's been stubborn about it, and he's saying, no, that's what I'm asking for, you say, okay, go wherever and get that then, because we're not convinced you're going to be the next big thing. They might also think, with let's just say 90 million quid, maybe we'd get for him. I don't know if we'd get that, but let's say for argument's sake, we've got 90 million quid. They might go, well, we can get, with our recruitment specialists, three players at 30 million quid. As if they'd invest all the 90 million quid back into the squad, but probably not. But they might look at it that way and say, we could get 3 players for 30 million quid who are probably not far off the ability of Mainu, who are more proven. And then we've got depth as well. They might look at it that way. So I'm just balancing it out. I'm not saying those things are true, and I'm not saying those things are definitely the case in terms of the club and that's the way they're thinking, but I'm trying to find reasons, I suppose, so it's basically not just to think it's a fire sale. What would I do in this situation? I'd give him 70k a week, which is a significant improvement on his contract. He's 19 years old. He's going to have a long career, hopefully, and hopefully he's going to do really well. He's got plenty of time to make a lot of money. I'd give him 70 grand a week with incentives maybe, and say in 18 months' time we'll review it with this criteria for success and progress. If you've met that criteria for success and progress, we'll go up to 150 a week. And then after 3 years, maybe we're going to look at it again and say, okay, maybe you go up to 200 or whatever. I'd do it incrementally like that. Excuse me, I'm putting it off, but I'm going to have to. Lovely stuff. That's what I'd do. I think that's common sense. But if we were offered, someone offered us £100 million tomorrow for him, it depends on what the club's intent is. If they're just going to throw that against PSR and say that's clear profit and we don't reinvest it, and it's just purely for a fire sale, I'd be dismayed. If the club have a football person weighing things up that says, do you know what, it's too good to turn down that. He's after daft money a week. We don't think he's going to be as good as everyone thinks he's going to be. We've seen things that concern us a little bit or whatever, and someone's offering us 100 million quid now, and we can reinvest that and get three midfielders or 2 midfielders and a winger or whatever, then I could understand why they'd do it. But I don't trust that that's their intent. I don't trust that at all. I think it'd just be stowed away somewhere. I think it's Glazer's mark too. On to the others that are being linked with a move away. Garnacho. Garnacho is a cautionary tale of what I've just indicated with Mainu, in that Mainu right now is the golden boy, and no one can see anything else other than him being the captain of United in 5 years and being an absolute world superstar. Maybe not. Garnacho a year ago was unsellable, was the darling of the fans. The only way I could ever see him leaving Man United was, and I said it on here, is that he'll probably in 3 or 4 years' time be hankering for a move to warmer climes, or to more glamorous climes like Real Madrid. And I thought then that would be the only way that Garnacho and United would part ways on his terms, that he would want to leave. Never did I think less than a year later we'd be saying there's potential that he's going to be moved on, and I'd say the fan base seem 50-50 as to whether or not they really rate him moving forward or not. So he's your cautionary tale, Garnacho. For what it's worth, what I think of him, I think he is an extremely talented player. I think he's very dynamic. He's front foot. He's aggressive. He needs coaching. I think if he's coached properly, and we've got a coach who can do that, his ceiling is really, really high. There are times when he looks a little bit limited, as in, like, is he an absolute class A player that defenders can't work out? I think top defenders at the moment would find it quite easy to defend. Not easy, but they'd work him out. But with some coaching, I think he could be incredible. I think his talent is there, and if he can keep evolving and moving forward with his attitude and with his application, and with his, hopefully, eagerness to learn, which a lot of our younger players, when they've got to this sort of age, seem to have thought they've made it. If he can buck that trend, he could be a real player for United. But my thought with Garnacho is that the time to let him go is when he, in a couple of years' time, hopefully 2 or 3 years' time, when maybe he's starting to realise his potential, and inevitably he says he wants to go to Spain or wherever, and we go, right, okay, we'll get 150 million, 200 million quid for him then. Do it then, don't do it now and get 50, because that's one I think we could regret. Rasmus, the tricky one with Rasmus is, it's what he's worth versus what we paid for him, because we paid 72 million quid for him 18 months ago. And this, with PSR, if you then let a player go for, let's say, £25 million, that counts really negatively against you because of what you paid for him not that long ago. And if I'm being really honest, and suitors were looking at Rasmus at the moment, you're looking at a £30 million player. So I don't think it makes much sense to let Rasmus go, because I don't think we're going to get a lot of money for him. And also, I think he needs nurture. He needs a big warm blanket of support thrown over him, and he needs time, and he needs a more experienced player to come in and probably take the reins a little bit, so that he can find his way. If a club came in and offered us 50 or 60 million for him, I'd snap their hand off and just say, it's not worked out, no hard feelings, off you go. That's not a risk, because I don't think he's got that much potential that it's going to come back and bite us in the arse. It's a shame, but in terms of balancing the books and stuff like that, yeah, absolutely, I'd let him go for that sort of price. But you ain't going to get that for him. So there's no way I'd let him go for 30 at this stage when he's only been here for 18 months. The fact we're even having these conversations, I'm going to circle back around to the start of the video, it's just indicative that the people that are running the club haven't got the money they need to do it for us to be successful again. This, make no doubt about it, this is a fire sale. This is everybody's up for sale, and we'll listen to offers for everybody, because we're absolutely skint. We're laden with debt. We owe hundreds of £1 million to clubs in outstanding transfer fees. Our PSR rating's awful. We're probably on the cusp of FFP issues, or, like, I suppose, sanctions with FFP. We've got a £2 billion stadium we need to fund. The team's not very good. We've got extortionate wages. The money available that's given by Ineos was never going to be enough to sort all this out, which is what I said a year ago, what I said 18 months ago as well, and what I've said since. And if I had £1 for every time I've said we need a full takeover, I probably could have bought the club myself. But the fans didn't want it enough. A lot of fans got on their moral high horse about Qatar and said Sir Jim would be a better option. He isn't a better option. And for those people that did that, you've made your bed, so now you're lying it. This is it. This is Man United now. Absolutely skint. Having to think about selling a crown jewel academy player because we ain't got any money. Not because it makes financial sense. Not because it frees up funds for other players. Because we're skint. Now, that is not the basis for moving forward and being successful. That's not clearing the decks. That's getting rid of your best players because you ain't got any money. And ultimately, you know, what are we going to do about this? Because this is where it's going. United are a bang average team at the moment, and we're going to continue to be with these owners. We're just fading into obscurity, and that's what's going to carry on happening. We'll have our highs like we did at the weekend, but this is a long way back, and I don't think there's a proper way back. Those stages I talk about, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, we ain't getting past stage 1 with this type of mentality and this type of finance. We haven't got the finance available to do what we need to do. We needed a full takeover. It's all right, people now going, yeah, I've had it with Ineos, I was going to support them, but no. The chance is gone. Qatar ain't coming back in. The Glazers aren't selling their shares. Ineos are in the door. They're not going anywhere. Ineos and Glazers are like that. And none of them have got any money. Or not money that they're prepared to put into the club in the volumes of which is needed. So this is it. And what you've got with Manu is just a symbol of that. So I don't know what you do. No one gave enough of a shit to protest properly. No one will do anything like stop going to games. No one will do anything that's severe enough. And we need to take such drastic action for anything to make any difference to these people. And the fans won't be prepared to do it because they weren't 18 months ago. So they're not going to be now. We're screwed. Arsenal on Sunday. I think you wouldn't think it by what I've just been saying, but in terms of short term, with Amorim in the team, I think hopefully another week of training, I'm relatively optimistic that we can go and play pretty well again. I never ever thought I'd say this because I'm a big what's the word? I'm old-fashioned. I'm a sentimentalist when it comes to the FA Cup. I love the FA Cup. I used to hate it when Ferguson would play a weakened team in the FA Cup. It used to infuriate me. And I don't think Amorim should play a weakened team this weekend. But because we've got Arsenal in the third round, there's almost a bit of a like, oh, you're joking, Arsenal in the third round? I'll just piss off then, whatever. Like, you can stick your FA Cup up your arse. Like, that draw is ridiculous. I know someone's got a teams have to play each other, but I don't know. I think that stinks that we've got Arsenal in the third round when you look at the law of averages of who we're going to get. So what? So we scrape past Arsenal, and it's like a really good. And then what we get Liverpool or City or whatever in the fourth round. Like, I don't know. I probably would prefer. I want us to play well. I want us to give it a go. If we get through, I'd be delighted. But if we don't get through, I'm really not that arsed. I think I'd rather just go, right, let's have a dual approach of Premier League and the Europa League. And the Premier League is just us trying to work stuff out, trying to find shape, all that. The Europa League, you've got to go for it. You've got to go and try and win it. And we're capable of doing that, I think. So the FA Cup, unfortunately, this year in particular, just falls by the wayside a little bit. Last year we weren't even in Europe at this stage. So that was a bit different. You always want to be 2 competitions in the winter and moving into the spring, but I just don't see us going all the way in the FA Cup, and if we ain't going to win it, might sound a bit spoiled, but what's the point? Right, there we go. Glazers out.